Hello and welcome to Labs and Latte, a show where we dive into the NRA Labs curriculum while sipping on our favorite bean-based beverage. And I am here with another video on the Git series. So we've been dealing with Git as a version control tool, and we're pretty well into the series, actually. This is going to be part 4. I have one more part planned for now. I don't know if that'll be the last one, but I think I have one more in me that will deal with Git remotes, because I think that's sort of what... one of the ways that everybody is going to want to deal with Git, which is using things like GitHub and GitLab. But in the meantime, I think I want to spend a little bit of time on something that I always, it took a while for me to truly understand how to use, and that is how to fix mistakes. And there are many mistakes you can make in the world of Git. The reality is it's a very robust and powerful tool, and so making mistakes is actually not unexpected. And I want to preface this by saying this is not going to be the end. This lesson doesn't cover all the mistakes you could possibly make. Really, it covers one particular kind that's very common. And that is accidentally committing sensitive information, or basically committing things you didn't intend on committing. So let's get started. Let's see the lesson guide here, and if you want to follow along, the link will be in the description. So please use that link. And you can see in the lesson guide, we start off by making a new change. Let's talk about adding a new hostname configuration file to our repository. And so you can see in the snippet here, I'm entering the my first repo directory, which we've seen in the previous parts, and then I'm also doing this sort of cryptic looking cat statement, but this is actually fairly simple. Really, all this is doing is it's adding the text that you see highlighted here to the file, and it's creating it because of the double carets. Hostname-config.txt. And I'm just going to run this because it's a lot easier to do that. But I'll rerun cat on that file just so you can see the contents are pretty simple. It's just those 3 lines. And this is a simple Junos configuration for setting the host name of a Junos device. Now, we're pretty confident, right? This is a real world scenario, by the way. In fact, everything I'm about to say here, I've done myself. So, I'll raise my hand, guilty as charged. This is an extremely common scenario. Again, Git is a very powerful tool and it's very robust, but you get into this flow once you've learned Git well enough to be comfortable with it, and I don't mean necessarily like at a really deep level, but once you're familiar with it enough that it's sort of like, it's just part of your workflow, you just kind of understand the commands you need to write, you get into this rhythm and you start to sort of make a lot of these assumptions, and anytime you take shortcuts, you run the risk of doing what we're about to do. And in this case, we're sort of in that flow mode, right? We're like okay, we just like, maybe we want to get out of the office, maybe we want to get home to binge Tiger King. Sorry if you're watching this like years from now. That's a very topical reference right now. It's a Netflix series that just came out. Haven't even seen it, but everyone in the world is talking about it, so I figure I should probably watch it because I feel left out at the moment. So let's say we just want to leave the office and we're trying to get home. So we really quickly run git add star wildcard. Just say, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to git add everything. That's fine. Git commit. See, I'm even in a hurry right now, so I'm making typos on the command line. -s-m added new hostname configuration. Excellent. Okay, cool. And that does not look right. And this is sort of where you get that sort of pang of like, oh crap, what did I do? Yeah, this is unfortunate. So just to sort of highlight, we've made the change to hostname under hostname-config, but we see that there's actually 2 files changed here. And there's this file called credentials.txt. And by the way, this is usually not the point at which I feel this sort of guilty feeling or oh crap feeling. It's usually once I've pushed it. We haven't talked about Git remotes, but I usually don't catch it until I've actually pushed this commit to an upstream repository like in GitHub, and then that's when I really feel sick to my stomach, because then I'm like, oh crap, I not only committed sensitive information, but I put it on the internet. Not to say that I've ever done that with a Slack token before, but I've done that with a Slack token before. So yeah, this is not okay, but I think there's something that we can do to fix this. Let's take a peek. If we do a git show head, we can see that the contents of the file that we created for the hostname config are there, but also aligned with a super secret password, which is literally super secret password, in this file called credentials.txt. Not ideal. Not ideal meaning the committing of the change, but also storing your password in an unencrypted file, but whatever, that's fine. Let's just move past it. It's a hypothetical scenario, and I'm sort of churning those out lately. Now, as you see in the lesson guide, I have all of these warnings here. The commands that we're going to use to fix this can be very powerful because they're designed to literally obliterate history. That's kind of the point, right? Like if you've committed sensitive information to Git, it's not enough to just remove that content from delete the file and then make another commit, because the history is still there. Anybody that knows how to use Git is going to still be able to basically check out the commit that we made here to actually put the information there in the first place, and they'll be able to see it just plainly. So it's not enough to just make a new commit. We literally have to undo what we've done. We literally have to take this commit and delete it, and sort of go back in time, as it were. Now, the reason I give a warning is obviously that's desired in this case because that's what we want to do. We want to get rid of the information. But one of the, I think, safety nets of using Git is that history. Even if we were to just commit a whole bunch of crap into a repo we didn't expect, and get it into like a broken state, there's always a way to go back and say, okay, let's make different changes. What we're doing here is we're actually deleting that same history. We're deleting all of that history that we can normally go back in time and say, oh, it looks like this bug was introduced at this commit ID. Like, those commits won't exist. So that's why I give this warning. It's important that you understand what these commands do, and that you're only effectively erasing the history, not only that you want, but in the way that you want, because there's actually different ways to do this. So the command that we're going to use is called git reset. Basically what we're doing is we're saying, I want to reset the repository back to this commit. So everything that's happened since that commit, and it could be one commit that's happened since then, it could be 50 commits. I still, no matter what, I want to go back to this one commit ID and effectively reset the repository back to that state. Now, if you look at the snippet over here on the left side of the screen, you can see that there are two sort of parameters that I'm providing in addition to this command. The first one is --soft. This is sort of the lighter touch of the two. It's the safer option if you want to use this, because what this does, it still can be potentially harmful because it's still erasing commits, but unlike the command that we'll run at the very end, it takes all of the changes that were in the commits. So like if you were in, commit A, B, C, D, E, and you committed information in, say, like D, so you want to go all the way back to C, it's going to blow away commits D and E, but it's going to take the contents, the soft flag here, is going to take the contents from those commits and place them all into staging. Now, it's going to sort of mush them all together, so you lose all of the version control history because, again, the commits are gone, but at the very least, the contents of the files are still there in staging. And so then what you can do is you can edit staging accordingly and then make a new commit once only the information you want is in staging. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the second parameter that you see here is head ~1. This is sort of Git shorthand. As you knew from previous versions of this lesson, head is the commit we're currently pointing at. And at the moment, it's the commit that we made here. It's the commit that we made where we added the hostname configuration and inadvertently added the credentials file. And so what we want to do actually is go to the commit immediately before that, because the commit before that was fine. It was just a regular old commit. In fact, it was probably the last commit from the last version of this lesson. So we only want to go back by one. And what this shorthand allows us to do is exactly that. We want to go basically head -1. You can kind of think of a tilde as a minus. You're saying, hey, whatever head is pointed at, I want you to insert the commit ID for the commit prior to that, which is going to end up, and we can even see what it is, git log. One line. You can see that head is currently pointing at 4A13000. You can see that the commit prior to that is DFE 7B7A. So what we actually could do if we wanted, this would be exactly the same. This would actually result in the exact same outcome. We could do git reset --soft and then this commit ID. Same exact thing. I like this shorthand because, again, it gives first off, it's easier. And second off, we know, because we are looking at this particular scenario, that we want the commit right before the one that we just made. Now, this may not work for you. You may have to just basically say, look, I want to provide the commit ID just to be precise. And you know what? That's probably a good idea, because precision when using these commands is always a good idea. But we'll do that with the head, with the alias there. So git reset soft head ~1. Let's rerun git log just to see where that's at. And you can see the latest commit and where head is now pointed, because again, we blew away the last commit, is DFE 7B7A. So that's still there, but the one that was above it, the one that we made, is now no longer there. And if we run git status, you can see that the contents of that commit are now placed in staging, as evidenced by the fact that they are green. Now, now we're back to what we were doing 2 lessons ago, or two chapters ago, where we were effectively dealing with changes that were in staging. So we know we want the hostname config.txt file to be committed. That was the whole point of the commit, but we don't want the credentials.txt file committed. So let's actually do a git reset on that file. And again, in the second chapter, we looked at this, how to remove things from staging. And we'll do a git status. You can see that now the change for hostname config is in staging, and the credentials.txt file is now an untracked file because it's not in staging anymore. And Git doesn't intend on including it because it's untracked. Now, we could delete this file, but honestly, it could be that this file still needs to be here, and what we instead want to do is just protect against committing this file accidentally in the future. The best way to do that is to add it to something called a Git Ignore. This is just a simple text file that you can add either file names or paths or wildcards or all kinds of different interesting things to ignore files. This is usually one of the things that I noticed this is used for a lot is in let's say, like you have an IDE that sets up various project files that are specific to your IDE. Generally, it's kind of a faux pas to commit those because it's kind of specific to your environment. And so it's not uncommon to add things like that to a Git Ignore file. Another example is like if you're working on a Python project, you want the .py files to be committed because that's the source code, but you don't want the .pyc files to be created because that's the bytecode. It's the interpreted bytecode from that original source, and so you don't want that committed at all because it gets generated by Python. And so that's another example. And then in that case, you would just say star.pyc to ignore all PYC files. For us, it's easy enough just to say, look, we just want you to ignore this credentials.txt file. So let's append this text to a new file called .gitignore, and we will also add that file to staging. Another thing that's pretty common, this kind of sounds like sounds confusing, but it's actually a good idea to commit this file to commit the Git Ignore file, because then everybody can benefit from it. So now it's not just me that gets this protection against committing the credentials.txt file, but it's everybody that uses this repository, as long as they have the most recent version of the repo. Let's do a git status just to see where we're at. Yep, looks like both of these files are now in staging. And we will run the commit. Yeah, git commit -s-m, adding hostname config that my stupid boss wanted. Excellent. Okay, so in this case, it's fine that 2 files changed because we actually added the Git Ignore file, and that'll protect us from adding the credentials file in the future. Oh, I forgot to mention, when we created that Git Ignore file, you'll notice we didn't remove the credentials.txt file. In fact, I'll just do an ls-lha and just see the actual files outside of Git. You can see that file is still there. But because it's listed in the Git Ignore file, Git is ignoring it, like as you might expect. So very useful. The file is still there, but it's not in Git, and it can't be unless we override it, which is possible. But you'd have to really, really want to commit it if you did that. Okay, so we are good. We've made a commit and a good commit. We don't have any sensitive information in the repository. Next thing is we accidentally besmirched the good name of our superior, and that's not good either. So we can actually change this as well, and that's using the --amend flag for the git commit command. What this does basically is instead of making a new commit, it takes the commit that you're currently pointing at with head, and it changes it. And of course, as a result, as we covered in part 2, a commit ID is a cryptographic hash of the commit message, the date and time of the commit, the contents of the commit, and all kinds of other things. And so by doing this, you change the commit ID. Now, this isn't a huge deal for us in this case, but it will actually become a little bit of a problem when we do talk about Git remotes, because at that point you're kind of changing people's history. But we'll deal with that in the next section. I actually have a section planned on covering exactly that. We'll stick with the local repo problems for now. And so if we do git commit, and I'll do this by hand because I actually don't want to provide the message in line. I want the text editor to get opened. Looks like it's opening here. We open Nano. You can see the previous commit message is already provided for us because that's what we put in last time. But we can edit it here by just simply taking it out and saying adding hostname config. There we go. Now, as you can see, if we do git log, you can see that the commit is here, and it's a new commit ID from the one that we had before, and it's directly it's a direct child commit of this merge conflict resolution commit that we made in the previous section. And so we've really only still made one commit. Even though we've run the git commit command like 3 or 4 times, we still only have this one commit. So it's just that's what happens when you change it. Now, let's say for some reason our boss comes by and says, "Look, our super secret hostname configuration is it shouldn't be committed either." And so what we want to do is we just want to undo the entire record of this commit. What we want to do is get back to this commit and blow away this commit entirely. Don't even care about the changes. Don't care about the contents. I just want you to get rid of everything. A little bit overkill, but sometimes needed. Sometimes you just need to get rid of the last commit. Or more than one. Sometimes you need to get rid of a lot of commits. And again, I want to say this this is where things can get dicey, because what we're doing here is we're using a flag --hard, which is similar to the git reset command that we ran before, but unlike the last command, it's not going to place anything in staging. It's simply going to delete all of the commits up until the point that you specify. And so if you specify, say, if we were to specify, let's scroll down in this commit list. If we were to specify, say, this commit in this command, it would just destroy all these other commits. They'd just be gone. All their contents, all that history, all of it would be gone. So definitely wield this with some caution. What we'll do again is we want the last commit to be gone, and so we'll rerun that alias of head ~1. So git reset again --hard. Very dangerous, but in this case, we know what we're doing. So head ~1. And you can see head, it even says head is now at that commit where it says resolve merge conflict, overwrite threads change. That's the commit message for that. DFE 7B7A. DFE 7B7A. There we go. So yeah, and then git log. You can see that our commit is no longer there. And effectively what we're back to is before we even started this lesson. This is what the repo looked like, because we've effectively undone everything that we've done thus far. Okay, and then yeah, like I said in the last section of this lesson, I do cover this a little bit. This was easy enough for us to resolve because we're working in a local environment. Like the repo that we're working with here is only here. The idea of changing history, whether it's through the git commit amend, --amend flag, or through the git reset commands, has broader implications when you're working with others using something called remotes. Like if you're working with GitHub, where you are collaborating on a repo with people all around the world, where they have their own copies of the ancestry, and then your changes have to get merged together in some way. Playing surgery on your Git repository can have some implications, kind of bad implications if you're not careful. And so what we're going to talk about, I'm teasing this a little bit because I think it makes a lot more sense once we've covered remotes first. But there will be a section in the next part of the lesson where we cover effectively fixing problems when using Git remotes, because there's some etiquette that needs to be observed when doing that, just to make sure that you don't break the ancestry for people. Okay, so that is it. Hopefully this was useful. Again, if you want to follow along with these videos, the links to everything that you want are in the description below. NRELabs.io is the main site. If you go there and you click on Hit Lesson Catalog, it'll give you a full list of all of the lessons that we have. This lesson on Git is just one of them. We've got a lot of other lessons, and we're adding to them all the time because it is a community-driven curriculum. If you want to contribute, please get in touch and hit us up and go to our docs, go to our site, and attend our stand-up. But until then, I'll see you guys next time, and stay safe out there.